Hi everyone, welcome to the update for the Frostblades Gladiator guide that I've made about a month ago. I've been playing the build for about a week now, maybe a bit more. I made some changes to it and I want to share them with you. Before I go on, I want to answer one question. Should you play this build? No, absolutely not. I don't think you should. I know you don't hear this most of the time, but I don't want to make bait builds or give false expectations to you. If you want to play Frostblades, play it on Warden and you can still use max block with Svalin. It should be much better than this one in terms of damage and quality of life. Before I started leveling a Gladiator, I tried putting up a POB in accordance with the recommendation of a comment under the original video. That comment advised that I should try this on Ascendant, but I don't like losing Lucky Block chance on the Ascendancy, and also Warden doesn't provide much on Ascendant. Sure, Spell Suppression and additional Tincture is good, but it's kind of meaningless unless you invest into Tinctures a lot. Still, thanks for that comment, it gave me something else to think and try about. As for the changes, I've tried 3 different variations of the build. First and foremost, Eternity does not work in this setup. I'm sorry about that. The reason for that is I'm stupid and not one of you warned me that it wouldn't work like that. I played with Eternity last league with Elemental Hit of Spectrum and it worked just fine because you're dealing damage with 3 elemental types. But in order to proc Eternity with only 2 elemental damage types and in a physical setup like this, those damage types need to alternate between highest rolls. Since we're dealing mostly cold damage, our fire damage roll will never be higher than our lowest cold roll. So for example, if we're doing cold damage between 50,000 to 100,000, our highest fire roll needs to be more than 50,000. I hope that I could explain it to you like this. And this is due to the nerf to the Heat Shiver after the Crucible League. Of course I tried fixing this, but we'll get there. I've spent around 80 divines on this build, actually more than that, but that's because I've tried different setups. I crafted this claw for about 46 divines. I bought the base for 16 and I spent another 30 on crafting it. I was a bit unlucky with Veiled Orbs and also I used Augment from the Harvest Bench for critical strike chance or multiplier, because if I were to use Reforge, it will be really easy to break the item since we already have attack speed as a fracture. And the rest of the budget went to crafting or buying the gear and jewels and whatnot. After realizing that the cost will be really high for dual wielding and it will be quite mediocre at that budget, I first tried using Varnastra with the claw. There are pros and cons of using Varnastra. We can still benefit from dual wielding buffs and from Weapon Master completely on our Ascendancy. And since Varnastra also gives a good amount of accuracy, we don't need any from our gear. So that's a plus. We free 1 suffix from our glows. Also we deal 30% more damage to enemies on low life, but that's a bit conditional. Of course, you need to get the enemy to low life first. On the flip side, it's much harder to cap crit and we lose a lot of attack speed because Varnastra doesn't really excel in both of these things. The second thing I experimented on was trying to proc Eternity. I crafted a dagger like this for about 6 divines or something like that. I was quite lucky with essences. Also I started using Anger instead of Hatred. In this setup it's quite reliable to play with Eternity, but the damage increase is quite negligible since we're losing Hatred. And the dagger does not provide any physical damage. Maybe I should have crafted it like that, with increased physical damage. But I don't think it will be really better. You could also use Call to Fire gem alongside with Eternity, but then you would have to drop another support gem. So I didn't really like that either. By this time I've played the build in a full armor setup. As you can see, these are some of the items that I crafted while trying. I sold the boots. I didn't want to craft suppression gear, but armor at low investment is not really good as a defensive mechanic by itself. Also, you need a lot of strength to use the highest base types. I mean, this needs 293 strength. I feel you need at least 80 to 100,000 armor to be able to really benefit from it in terms of physical damage reduction. And finally, I completely got rid of dual wielding, switched to a shield. It's much easier to reach block cap while using a shield on Gladiator, because this node on the Ascendancy overrides the block chance on the shield and provides 5% block chance if you pick this shield mastery. So we use less points compared to dual wielding to cap our block. Of course, I need one more level to also cap my spell block by allocating the mastery here. As you can see, it's 62% now. On top of that, generating endurance charges becomes much easier with this node. Since we're blocking most of the time, this is quite reliable. After switching to a shield, I crafted some basic suppression gear and kept my suppress easily with the help of the shield. Of course, this body armor needs a bit of work, but it's fine like this for now. This saves us another 3 or more points depending on where you pot on the tree, because we don't need evasion mastery to cap our suppression. You could either get it from here or here. With those points, I invested a bit into tinctures on this part of the tree and started using this one. After testing it a bit, we have about 10 seconds uptime on the tincture. I guess it's not that bad, but capping crit becomes harder, so I just switch back to brittle ground instead of action speed on my boots. So this is the final version of the build. With our tincture up, we have around 19 million DPS, but that drops to about 11 million without the tincture. I also can't currently use Silver Flask for Onslaught, since I need Corrupted Blood immunity. I could always use the Mage Blood, of course, but I think we're getting a lot of value from the belt slot. Life, resist, and a bit of damage. I also changed my Lethal Pride to get Rage on hit. It's not always up, but since I'm running fully juiced maps, I can sustain it most of the time. Of course, I didn't include this in the POB. I've been running Harvest in 8 mod T16 maps with this build. I've also found Scarabs on T17 maps. Other than monsters have a chance to avoid elemental ailments, cannot leech, and reduced block modifiers, it can run pretty much anything else. The reason why I said don't play this build was because it's not really tanky at all against physical damage. You will die occasionally if your block fails. The build is perfectly fine for juiced T16 maps unless you're doing something like Unending Nightmare on Delirium. I don't think it's suitable for something like that because the damage is just not enough. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have spent so much time on this build if I didn't make a video for it. I just felt responsible and tried to fix it as best as I could. I'm still happy I made it though, because I've learned a lot of things while trying to fix it. And 2 things stood out the most for me. I will never publish a build guide without playing it myself, unless it's some crazy tech that everyone can benefit from. Of course, I had no way of playing Gladiator before League started, but still, you get the idea. Second, I will never rely on armor as a defensive mechanic at low investment, because in this build, if you invest into defensive nodes on the tree, you lose too much damage. Other than that, Gladiator is perfectly fine for playing generic attack skills or bleed. I might try an ambidexterity build later on, but for now I will start working on a build with Mage Blood, because I only use it on my Sanctum runner and I want to play a caster while mapping. I will share it with you if anything good comes up. That's pretty much all from this video. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one. I'd appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, have a good one.